Hi everyone, we are back with another episode of a fascinating podcast allowing you to get to know people working behind the scenes of the crypto industry. Today, we catch up with a very unique guest, DefiKai. He's the creator of the DeFi Crypto Vaults newsletter and website, the best place to get the latest crypto vault news. Welcome to the 59th episode of the Inside Crypto podcast. This episode was recorded on May 1st, 2022. Today we talk about Bribe wars, Curve, and stablecoins. These and many more issues on today's show. I would also like to thank my employer Amun Tokens for making podcasts like this happen. Please don't forget to check us out and our website at tokens.amun.com. Thanks everyone for listening, and don't forget to tune in next week where we interview someone else in the cryptocurrency universe. Evening, morning, and afternoon, everyone, wherever you are. I hope you are having a wonderful week so far. We are here with the latest episode of the Inside Crypto Show, interviews and discussion with regular people like yourselves. Today, we are joined by an increasingly popular star of the Reddit space, DefiKai. He puts together a very valuable newsletter highlighting the best vaults for a wide range of crypto users. He's going to be talking to us all about crypto across the sphere today. We have to do the usual disclaimer. Anything said by either DefiKai or myself does not constitute financial advice. Our opinions are our own and not to be connected with our employers. Please do your own research. Because it's just DefiKai today, we can spend more time talking about his background. Thank you so much for making time for us today on a Sunday out of all days. I appreciate it. DefiKai, tell us about yourself. Tell us about your background. How did you get into crypto?
Yeah, no problem. So I started probably in 2018. That's when I first invested in Ethereum. From there, I really laid off of crypto and then I went into stocks. I was really heavy into dividend stocks. And then probably about a year and a half ago, my brother came to me and he was like, there's this thing called DeFi. It's like crypto on manual. You have to know about it. And I was hesitant at first. But when I first got started with DeFi, it was on Polygon with Avi, just simple lending, borrowing, getting to know that. And then I just started trying out each chain one by one. I went to Fantom, went to BSC, went to AVAX, then Solana, and just started like finding out which one was my favorite, what were the differences. And yeah, that's pretty much where I started out. And after I just learned the different nuances of the different blockchains, just did my due diligence and went back and researched and just learned the core knowledge of just blockchains, finance, macroeconomics, things like that. I decided to start writing about it and just putting that out. And then so started making write-ups and then did my newsletter.
Nice. That is a journey. I mean, just off what you said, I've got a few questions. Something I always ask guests on the show. I just looked at it. We're like episode 72.
Crazy.
Why Ethereum? What was that sort of memory
Uh,
that like triggered you to say, okay, I've got to get into this?
Initially, a lot of my investments were led by people in my life. So the two main people that I talk to about investments and just things of that sort is my cousin. He's a hedge fund manager, and my brother. He's really into just tech and crypto in general. And my cousin told me about Ethereum, and he was saying just buy it and hold it, just buy it and hold it. And that was enough for me to get it. But I did definitely do my due diligence after, because any investment in your portfolio, you have to have strong conviction in yourself to not be able to sell it. That's where Ethereum came from, and I still hold Ethereum now.
All right, you mentioned you did research into a bunch of different chains. I started off on Ethereum as well in 2017, and you mentioned Solana, Avalanche, Fantom. In 2022, right? What is your favorite chain so far?
I have to say Fantom. Yeah, Fantom, and then Solana and Terra.
Wow, cool. Even with Fantom, I think I checked earlier today, it was like sitting at 76 cents. Even with that price range, Phantom's is still your favorite?
Yeah, because I have a lot of conviction in the projects and I like the developers. In particular, Byte Masons, they're doing a lot of innovative stuff. The strategies that they employ on their Reaper farms, that's an auto compound. Those are pretty cool. There's just a lot of things about the space that I like. The cohesion of the content creators and educators in the space, trying to just make developer terms simple for the users and for the investors. Yeah, I really just like the ecosystem a lot. And then Solana, I like it a lot. Solana's Solana's NFT ecosystem is definitely ahead of its DeFi ecosystem, but once they merge, the DeFi ecosystem is just going to skyrocket. But have you heard of Bridgesplit?
No, I'm not heard of Bridgesplit. What is it?
It's a protocol basically fractionalizing NFTs.
Oh,
So they
cool.
break NFTs down and create sort of an index fund, and it's a lot more to it. But basically, they're trying to add liquidity to NFTs, so and be able to merge that with DeFi. As long as more companies like that come along, I feel like Solana will get better too. But my fault, I'm going on a tangent. We were talking about Fantom.
No, no worries. Tangents are cool. Tangents are interesting. I love tangents because that's how we get to hear about interesting projects like fractionalized NFTs. That's totally cool. Another question as well, because this is a common question we get, and you definitely sound so super knowledgeable. And for
Thank
people
you.
listening to the podcast, if you have not seen DefiKai's newsletter, I'm going to plug it now, and I'm going to plug it at the end of this podcast. It is like aesthetically beautiful, not to mention very easy to understand. Like, while I've started crypto in 2017, I am nowhere near as knowledgeable as DefiKai is. I'm only started getting into DeFi and other stuff like that towards the sort of end of 2020. Going back to the newsletter, it's like, how do you do your research? How do you get into it?
So the first website I always start at, like my home base, is definitely DeFi Llama. That gives you a good visual overview of all of the chains, all of what they have to offer, and then you'll start to notice just similarities. Okay, this is an AMM. There's AMMs on other chains. This is just for like beginners. So yeah, just getting to know the similarities and like what's out there, what you could possibly do. So yeah, definitely starting off with DeFi Llama as the home base, and then white papers. So after you use DeFi Llama, start off, go to white papers, read them, even if you don't fully understand them, because you'll start to see terms that'll make sense to you later. And then as far as YouTube, I tried to steer clear of, it's depending, you have to vet content creators right now, because this is definitely the age of like misinformation. So there'll definitely be people that can offer you some good information at first and then it turns to shilling, but you just definitely have to do some vetting and find those content creators who are more so explaining theories and topics and things that you can apply to multiple things, rather than just siloing your mindset and saying, oh, this is what I think about Fantom, this is what you should think about Fantom. So just try to look at the facts as much as you can. Also, the deeper you get into it, you're going to get into Etherscan, Fantom Scan, like the different block explorers and things like that, where you can actually see people's wallets. The next thing I would do would be to go and try to find like certain whales wallets and just find any wallets that you can explore and find new things from, and find new coins and find other things that you can research and read their white papers. Just finding something and going down that rabbit hole, because there's a lot of things that you're going to pick up along the way that'll be useful when you go down another rabbit hole.
That's totally true. And I mean, you said a lot of valuable. We could make a whole show just talking about your background, but we should talk. You had some really cool topics that you brought for us today, and I really appreciate that. Not to mention, I want to talk about the newsletter because I looked at the latest one and that had some interesting stuff there. But so today, one of the first things you want to talk about was gauge voting and bribe wars. And I know a little bit about that, but for the average crypto user, what are we going to get into now?
So that's, I guess you could say, current meta right now. That's what's been able to bring a lot of the TVL to ETH, and what's anticipated to bring TVL to a lot of other chains. When you say wars, so basically you hear curve wars, spirit wars, beats wars. So wars is just refers to the competition for liquidity on a specific protocol. And so those happen on AMMs or lending protocols, because they usually have the most liquidity. And then, so on those protocols, they have LPs that you can enter. So entering those LPs and adding liquidity gives rewards, but it gives rewards from like the native governance. So say, for instance, you enter LP on Curve, you're getting Curve rewards. You also are getting trading fees, but the Curve rewards are usually way more. And so basically, to discourage users from dumping those tokens and at the same time add utility to those tokens, they incentivize users to lock the tokens and create VE tokens, which is voter escrow tokens. So you lock your curve for 1 to 4 years or however long you want, and you get VE curve. And so that represents your voting power. So with the VE curve, once you lock it, you get an APY off of the amount of VE curve you locked. That's just the trading fees and things like that. And you get boosted yield. On Curve, you might notice that they have APR ranges. So it might be like 5% to 10%, and locking more VE curve gives you more of a boost, right? So the last part of it is the voting power. So you control emissions to the gauges represent LPs. You're controlling how much rewards each LP gets with your vote. And so that is basically like the real game changer in it, because protocol is looking for more liquidity. Say, for instance, like Frax, they would acquire, well, not like Frax, like UST would acquire more curve, and they could point more emissions to their LPs to incentivize more users to just enter the LPs, and that's more liquidity. So we have the protocols looking for more liquidity, right? Like
Right.
UST, they acquired Curve and locked this. Then we have another player, which is the yield optimizer. So these are other protocols that have the LPs from like Curve, they have them on their site, but they have them with boosted yields. And what makes these protocols different is that they have a majority of that governance. So it discourages other protocols from like acquiring more curve, because if one protocol has 30% of the curve, you're going to want to do something else. So that leads us to bribes and interacting with yield optimizers like Convex. All right, Convex is a yield optimizer, and they have a large portion of curve. So with that curve, they're able to basically they lock up their curve and they get all of the voting power. They get that voting power, they get the APR, and they get the boosted pools. So they give that to their users. So if you go on Convex Finance's site, you'll be able to see the LPs from Curve, but you'll be able to get Curve emissions and Convex emissions. And they also have CVX Curve. So this is another way that they're able to pool more Curve, because if you're a user who already has Curve, you trade in for CVX Curve, and that Curve gets locked. So that contributes to their overall share of it. And then with CVX Curve, you get rewards, and it's also tradable, swappable, right? And then you can lock Convex up. And if you lock your CVX tokens, you get to control the emissions for the Convex site for those boosted pools. They basically create a secondary market, and other protocols that are looking for liquidity are either going to go through Convex and get CVX tokens, because that would be easier than getting Curve, or they're going to bribe. And so when they bribe users, it's because they see it more budget friendly to bribe people than acquire governance tokens. So they'll give bribes like every convex vote, every curve vote will give you 12 cents. And it just depends whatever token they're trying to give out. But yeah, so that whole model, there's been basically adaptations on other chains. AVAX with the Joe Wars. Fantom has just a lot of governance wars going on. Spirits Wars, Beats Wars, 100 Wars. Yeah, so there's just a lot of chains that are just adopting that and using it in different ways. And I really like the way that Fantom is used.
So how is Fantom using it? Because one of the things I think I've read maybe towards the end of 2021, beginning of 2022, people point out that like the whole curve convex incentivizing liquidity model is not sustainable, because eventually you're just inflating the price of whatever your token is. How is this going to play out in the long term?
So I feel like in the long term, it'll probably more so be a battle of who has those tokens then, because that'll just be set in stone. Once emissions dry up, then it'll have to just transition into another meta.
Emissions are going to drop, and then whatever is next for cryptos is just going to be that. There's nothing else, and we can't even predict it because we
Yeah,
haven't heard anything just yet.
definitely. And because this was surprising to begin with, the fact that another token, another protocol could wrap a token and end up using it in another way, and like DeFi protocols could collaborate in that way. I feel like there's just a lot in this space to uncover, and we don't know, because this is just a different type of economics.
Oh, totally, as well. And it's at the beginning of crypto, right? What is it? The Berkshire Hathaway had their little thing today, and people were commenting on Warren Buffett's saying, oh, no crypto for me, but he invests in banks that have crypto. And people were like, yeah, they expect crypto to mature in 2030, and it's 8 more years of whatever the hell is going to happen.
I actually relate this a lot to the .com, and I'm sure a lot of people do, because a lot of the things happening don't make sense, and you don't know who the longest players are going to be. And there might be some players who are able to last 10 years, and like you said, they may not have sustainable models. Say for instance like a pets.com. So it's, you don't necessarily know what you're getting yourself into. And then you may have an Amazon who just revolutionizes things and just does things that were unforeseen.
And you mentioned Amazon as well, because I always like, for the company that I work for, we have lots of users in different countries and stuff, and it's everyone knows Amazon, everyone knows Walmart. So do you think Ethereum is the Amazon of crypto?
It might be. And there are a lot of people who think that Ethereum or they're ETH killers. I say that sometimes to be funny, but I feel like the price barrier, even though it deters new users, it does what a price barrier does. It keeps people who are able to play in that range in that game. So I don't think
Oh yeah.
Ethereum's going anywhere. Yeah, so Ethereum might as well be the the Amazon.
Yeah, no, I've seen those Solana killer or Ethereum killer or Binance is smart chain killer, but yeah, it's the way I always describe it to people. It's like Amazon and Best Buy and Walmart and Target, and everyone exists despite Amazon being the behemoth it is. So it's, and Target's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah,
They
definitely.
might lose a little bit of money, but there are always going to be people who like, man, I love Target. This is where I'm going to go shopping.
Yeah, for sure. And as long as there are new inventions, there's always ways to get in and make inventions on top of that and innovate on top of that. We've seen in the past.
And you sound like a Fantom fan. Do you think Fantom is probably like at the moment the most sort of accessible chain?
Yes, between Fantom and Polygon, I'm pretty sure there are a lot of new ones. I've been hearing a lot of other recommendations like Chronos and things I haven't tried out personally, but in my opinion, Fantom and Polygon would be the best for new users, and definitely Fantom.
Maybe we can touch on that now. So one of the things I was going to ask you, and everyone's, I think this is probably people who are not that into crypto probably don't know, but like the big news was like Andre Cronje says I'm out of crypto, and then he did a recent blog post. I guess this is actually I'm now back into crypto, but like, and we talked about this just now. We said Fantom, the price when I looked on Binance was 76 cents, and on Reddit people are like, oh my god, what are you guys doing? Are you holding your Fantom? Are you buying? You're selling?
Yeah, it
What
was
do
a
you
lot
think?
of FUD surrounding that because the statements made were like half true. Because even though he was taking a hiatus or leaving or whatever he was doing, the protocols weren't shutting down. Yearn wasn't shutting down. Southerly wasn't shutting down. So there was just a lot of FUD going around.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then it's also hard because I think like you, right? I'm definitely very much into Ethereum, and sometimes when you're not into an ecosystem, it's very hard to discern what is FUD and what is real. And so you just hit the nail on the head right there. I was going to ask you about stablecoin wars. What's going on there?
Yeah, similar to what I mentioned about literally what I mentioned about the curve wars. So basically, there's a three pool basically of stable coins, and it has USDT, USDC, and DAI. And the four pool is now replacing it, which is USDT, USDC, UST, and Frax. And so UST is kicking out DAI, and UST and Frax are replacing it. And basically, in doing so, they're trying to just bootstrap more liquidity and gain more of the market and be the more dominant option. And actually, UST said they have like tons of curve, so they're definitely pointing emissions towards four pool. And I know Frax has been bribing as well. Yeah, it's just a big battle for liquidity and who's going to be the most dominant stablecoin.
Do you have any inclinations about who's going to be the most dominant stablecoin?
Not necessarily because it's like
Still too early.
yeah, it's still too early because you have the centralized side with USDT and USDC, and then you have the decentralized side with UST and Frax, and they both have upsides and downsides. So it's going to be about okay, it's going to be centralized over decentralized, and more than likely it's going to be decentralized that gains more of the market. And then yeah, I really don't know. I like UST a lot though.
And people who are somewhat familiar with UST, because we've talked about it on the podcast before, and everyone should be familiar with Anchor, their savings protocol, and buying up tons and tons of Bitcoin. And so it's USTs and Terra. Yeah, it is interesting. They've come up so fast, and not to mention them doing a lot of liquidity on Avalanche now as well. So it's very cool.
Yeah, and that's actually where I'm looking towards next, finding those really successful algo stablecoin projects and buying their governance tokens. Haven't tested this out. I'm still really thinking about it. I'm just going to put more thought into it, but I'm definitely already invested in Luna. Just looking towards like Frax, maybe Deuce DAO and Day, the algo stablecoin. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. One thing I do want to ask you, right? This is not on the script for today. Is just a lot of people end up asking me and send me messages and stuff. They're like, okay, I know USDT, right? And that's like the base pair for on like Coinbase or Binance or KuCoin. That is the biggest pair for the most number of coins. But people talk about a 3 pool and a 4 pool, and this is probably not a level of crypto for normal people. This is for something else. Like Frax
Um,
is not something regular people are actually going to ever use in the future.
uh, you never know. It just depends on the amount of adoption. But I feel like if anything, stable coins will be the first introduction, not the first introduction, but probably a part of the first introduction to cryptocurrencies that people are onboarded to in the future. Because I'm thinking like 10 years down the line when there's more documentation, more information accessible, and people are just like getting their MetaMask and getting on sites like Avi and things like that, having something that's store value. Having something as a store value is really important for a common user, especially if they're not used to all the volatility. But it's still crypto, but it's still risk adverse.
Yes, exactly, and it's something like I have friends, and I'm sure you have friends as well, or family members. Like, why are you into Bitcoin? Bitcoin was at $60,000 in 2021, or $67,000 at its high last year, and now it's
Yeah,
dropped down to 37,000. They're like, you don't have to get into Bitcoin. You can buy UST and stake it on Anchor Protocol and earn 19.63%. That's better than your 0.5775% at Bank of America or Chase Manhattan or
yeah.
wherever you bank. Yeah.
If not just for stable coins, I don't know what else they provide. Even 5%, 10%, but it's looking at DeFi numbers for too long. And when you look at DeFi numbers for too long and you look at something like 5%, you'll get bored. And it's really funny because that's actually really great. But in the world of DeFi, it's not great.
Exactly, because we're so used to single digits for stablecoins in some places, double
Exactly.
digits for stablecoins, triple digits for other stuff, for
Exactly.
yield farming somewhere else. So the other thing, like we've talked about Solana as well, right? And Solana, like I wrote network issues on the script, and literally this weekend Solana's had network issues. It was down. We had a user complaining about that. He wanted to swap our Solana index token and couldn't do it, and he was like, it's all you guys' fault. I'm like, no, it's not our fault, it's Solana's fault. What do you think's going on there?
Oh man, yeah. I had a panic attack yesterday. I looked in my wallet and I didn't see any of my NFTs. And I went to sites and it didn't work. But then I caught on. But I don't know what's going on there. I feel like Solana DeFi as a whole is, despite this, I don't know if you can really say despite this because this is definitely it was a bad hiccup, but definitely heating up slowly. I like protocols like Marinade, Solent,
Oh
Saber
yeah.
and Sunny are doing their rendition of the governance wars on Solana. So there's definitely a lot happening. And as long as Solana is able to merge NFTs and DeFi, which they're starting to do with Marinade, where you're able to lock your Marinade tokens for NFT that represents governance. Yeah, there's definitely some cool things happening. It's slow to start, but I feel like Solana is really powerful.
Yeah, no, and I agree as well. We've talked about like our favorite chain, and I've my goal is to try something different in crypto. And I've tried Avalanche, I've tried Solana, I've tried Kronos, and the one chain that I'm having the most like fun on from play to earn gaming, yield farming, and stuff for me is Polygon. I liked Avalanche.
Yeah.
I've tried Kronos as well, and Solana NFTs. I've gotten to Solana NFTs as well. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
my brother is heavy on ETH NFTs. Yeah, each one of my brothers, we're just in different sectors of crypto. My brother's on more so the developer side. I'm on the writing side, but we're both in DeFi. And then we have my other brother who's like heavy on ETH NFTs. So it's hilarious.
I was going to ask you as well because I know I'm like 40. My parents are like, my mom's 70, 73, 74. Are your parents okay? Their three sons being into crypto. Do they accept like this sort of Ponzi-nomics and all that stuff? They're not worried about you guys' future?
Because we definitely strive to do our due diligence, and at the same time of me saying I love crypto, I definitely do still have my hands in a good amount of dividend stocks and things like that. Diversification is key, but I'm definitely all in as far as research and a good amount of my portfolio in crypto for sure. Yeah, they're fine because they know that eventually we're going to get their retirement. We're going to get their retirement taken care of.
Nice. Of course, you guys are in and smart money, getting in early. So I totally agree with that. That's cool because it's I think that's another common question we always get on the podcast is like, how do I convince my mom to let me buy Bitcoin or to be not kick me out of the house because I'm so talking about crypto all the time or something like that. And it sounds like you've inspired your parents with so much confidence that they're okay.
Yeah, it is funny because it is division when you start talking about crypto and things like that, because depending on someone's introduction to crypto, whether it be like Sheeb or Doge, and they maybe got burned by one of those or maybe not, they just have a bad taste in their mouth, and crypto just sounds like totally crazy to them. Yeah, nah. I definitely don't try to convince anyone that that doesn't want to be convinced. I just more so dedicate more time to researching and honing the reasons why I'm invested.
Another side question, right? You sound like you've got everything like really well organized, really planned out between your vaults and your ecosystems and where you're yield farming and then curve and all sort of governance and stuff. How do you keep track of everything? Do you have a massive DefiKai spreadsheet with multiple tabs, or do you have a special crypto management software? Like, how do you organize your crypto exit?
That's funny you actually mentioned that. Actually working with some developers on like a research dashboard. I don't even know if I should put that
No,
into.
I don't think you should mention it at all, especially if it's
Okay.
something up and coming. This is crypto after all, but that's something we can hear about from you in the future as well. But that's cool. So this is what's been helping you organize everything.
Okay, cool. And we'll talk about that later. So I haven't actually used that yet. As far as what I use to research and compile my research, I use Obsidian Notes. That's a cool app for Mac and Windows. It creates like a mind map, and you get to open different tabs with notes, and there's just like different syntax where you can organize your notes and things like that. Then I use obviously Google Docs, Google Sheets, and just try to condense the sheets and the amount of documents to as little as possible. But if I need to, I'll have sheets that link to docs and vice versa. So that's as far as all of my research altogether, because I get research from Twitter, from Reddit, from everything, and I just have to compile it and make sense of it. But as far as my portfolio, I keep that in one sheet and update that every couple days, every week.
That's good. See, this is why you're like so much better than me because like when I started working in crypto, I like update my portfolio like once every 2 months or something because I'm just like so tired. So that's good on you that you can keep it up like that.
Yeah, definitely. It's a chore, but it pays off when you hear something or you think about something and you're able to go exactly to wherever it's at. And to be truthful, a lot of this starts on like just pen and paper. So I might have just 10 sheets of printer paper sitting on the desk and just writing on all of them and trying to condense it and make sense of that before I put it on the doc. So I can just put it in lists that make sense. I'm all about lists that make sense and just condensing things the best way.
So you do some sort of manual work and then you do put everything in an organized electronic format.
Yeah, especially if I'm watching a YouTube video, definitely important to take notes because writing down what you're hearing and then reading it, it just helps you learn. Well, in my experience, it's just helped me learn better. And then being able to cross out things, draw little diagrams and things like that, that's usually helpful for me to just understand the relation between certain terms to other terms and just find parallels and just make sense of everything.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I don't want to keep you too long. It's probably almost lunchtime there. So I want to talk about your vaults, right? Which you put into your newsletter. They're really well organized. And I've talked about it before. Is why do you think people are so interested? Because I've shown your newsletter to a few people and they're like, wow. And I'm like, yeah, wow, this looks really cool and it's really simple,
That's
easy to
great.
understand. And it has that sort of old retro Windows 95 aesthetic as well. Like, why are you doing this? What made you decide to put all this effort, start the website, start the newsletter?
I started my research, I was looking for ways. It goes back to when I first started investing in DeFi in general. In DeFi, you'll see APRs like 1,000%, 100%, just crazy APRs, APYs, whatever. And so you'll see these, and then you'll stake or into the LP or whatever, and then next week it's like down to 10%. And my whole goal was just trying to find the most sustainable vaults and just research that and get that so new investors wouldn't have to spend transaction fees on getting out of this vault and going into another vault. So you could just sit for at least a month. That's pretty long in DeFi time, but sit for at least a month and let your investment grow or even hopefully longer, things like UST, AUST, and Anchor. So that was the motivation behind it. And then there's the yield farming strategy section. I really wanted to show people the best ways to compound their rewards and create stable positions, take profits, things like that. So I really just wanted to use it as like the template to give to other people and have them use it as a starting of what they want to do with their rewards or how they want their financial pipeline to work.
And I love, like, for anyone, if you're listening to this podcast, I highly suggest you go to the website. It should be in the link on the YouTube video, on the podcast app as well. And you should open up, have a look at it, and it'll say Yield Farming 101. This is Governance Wars Farmer, one I'm looking at right now. And it has each step for you, which I think is absolutely wonderful, because that is like so confusing. Like, you go to a site like Marinate Finance, for example, or you go to like any site that has like a vault, and you're like, okay, what do I do now? And if you're just getting into crypto after the stage of being like a centralized exchange, and you start using dexes and stuff, and it's quite difficult, and it's a little bit scary as well, especially for people who are like, okay, I've built up some money, I don't want to lose all this money that I've made from trading crypto. And you organized it very well. One of the things I do want to ask about this as well is you have expanded it. Like, from the first time I saw you post Reddit, you've got the tweet stuff on the bottom, you've got news and interesting finds. Are we going to expect the letter to get longer or have more pages? I mean, what do you want to do with it?
It might get longer in the meantime, but the whole goal is adding utility. So just finding ways in which I can give the most knowledge in the most condensed way. Yeah, I'm just looking forward to adding more utility. I'm going to add some write-ups for both Fantom and Solana for protocols that you should be paying attention to and just important things you should be paying attention to in the ecosystem, like some of my Twitter threads. Yeah, just, at the end of the day, adding more utility.
Nice. So I'm going to have your Twitter in the show notes as well. So you guys should definitely be following DefiKai. You've listened to this podcast, he's already like crazy smart. You mentioned content creators. You do the writing, and you're on a podcast right now. Are we going to see like a YouTube video or something in the future? Is that in the cards, or you just want to stick to writing for the moment?
Potentially, yeah. Definitely not shying away from YouTube. I'm going to stick to writing content at first and build out that. But yeah, I would definitely do YouTube.
Nice. Going back to the new newsletter as well, is this crossed my mind. Would you ever, because the best way is just go to your website, put in your email, subscribe as well, right? You're not selling anyone's information to anyone, so you're safe. You're just getting this wonderful,
yes, of course,
awesome newsletter. Yeah, of course. And it's awesome. Are you going to add this on other places like Substack or Medium or other places, or still you just want to keep it all on your centralized website?
So I actually have some Medium articles in the works, but I'm definitely working on building out the blog on my site and just expanding the features of the site.
And it makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. You want to keep that digital real estate, and especially over the things you write. This is decentralization.
For me, looking at it, it's something that could grow into something really special. Loads of people have crypto newsletters, freaking Coin Bureau. There's a bunch of other places as well, like YouTubers, they have their own newsletters, but like nothing in the last sort of 2 years that have been seriously into crypto. I haven't seen anything like this, which is why I think it's unique. And I evangelize crypto because I think it's the best way for younger people to have a financial future. And I want to thank you. If no one else is going to thank you, I want to thank you for actually contributing towards that effort.
No, thank you. And touching on what you're saying, this is definitely the era for younger people like myself to build wealth, whether it be from investing or just being involved in the space. Like, there are so many understaffed startups with a lot of capital that are looking for talented individuals to fill those roles. So just staying diligent and working towards your goal and keeping your eyes open for all these opportunities, which there are many of them. Yeah, young people can definitely build wealth for themselves in this time.
Oh yeah, and I mean, we could talk about that forever as well, but I think we've come to a good place. Thank you so much for doing the show today and doing it just before lunchtime, your time. I appreciate your time. Is there anything you want to end off with, anything you want to plug that people should be looking for on Twitter or the newsletter, anything they should keep an eye out for in the next 30 days?
Yeah, just stay tuned for the newsletter. I'm going to be adding a lot more things. There's actually giveaways coming soon. That should be interesting and a lot more information. And then, yeah, just give a shout out to my brothers on Twitter. Sean Don XO, he's into NFTs a lot. And OX Black Boy, so he's in the development a lot. So yeah, those are just the two other people I bounce these ideas off and get more ideas from, things like that.
If you want, I'll include them in the show notes as well. So if people want to follow, you're all from the same gene pool, so you've all got to be super smart.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Thank you for adding that.
And no problem as well. I had a quick question as well. Is I meant to ask you on Twitter, what is the cadence of your newsletter? Because is it weekly or bi-weekly?
My newsletter is weekly, and I supplement the weekly newsletter with the Twitter threads, which I'm aiming to put out every other day. I'm trying to stockpile them so I can end up putting them out on a more consistent schedule.
Okay. And again, this is just the nerd in me. Is like, it might be a bit like too exaggerated, but when do you like push it out towards subscribers?
Oh, so I'm going to actually be transparent. In starting this whole thing, I'm definitely doing a lot of different tests as far as what is the most optimal time. Probably the past 2 weeks, they've been at different times, probably like at 9 or 12, but I'm getting down on a consistent time schedule for you guys, and I'm definitely going to deliver it to you at a consistent time each week in the near future.
So I'm not too worried about consistency. I'm just like, for me, I enjoyed the first one so much, and I actually tried out the yield farming 101s, and it was so nice. It gave me a sense of security. So I'm like, okay, the next one, I got to be ready when it wakes up.
I appreciate
block out that time on my calendar.
No, that's dope. Yeah. I don't know what is earlier better, is later better. So it just goes down to that optimization. But no,
and it's good you're experimenting. Like in podcasting, I've had to do the same thing. Like, when's a good time to release an episode? So give it a try, and you're seeing what works for you. So whatever it is, I'm sure we can find out on Twitter when you actually decide like, this is the time you're going to release it consistently.
For sure.
Cool. All right, DefiKai, thank you so much again. I already said it a lot, but hopefully we can have you on regularly going on, not to mention your job and stuff. So I appreciate it. Whenever we can get you on, I will just send you a message and we can see if you want to talk about other stuff. But thank you again. And everyone, please subscribe to the newsletter. Again, check the YouTube app, check your podcasting app, whatever you're using. Subscribe. It is well worth your time. It is not this massive block amount of text. It's wonderfully done. This episode will be up Tuesday morning American time. And we'll catch you guys then. That's all we have time for today, folks. I'm everyone at Amun. Really appreciate you stopping by. Please don't forget to follow us on social media. Twitter at Amun, A-M-U-N. Telegram at Amun Tokens. Or stop by our Discord and join in the conversation. If you are Chinese speaking, we now have a Telegram group just for you. Amun Tokens CN. We are also on Reddit at r/Amun Tokens. Amun also puts out a monthly newsletter with the latest insights on the crypto market. You can sign up for that wonderful piece of writing on the bottom of our homepage. If you're looking for a place to call home, there's nothing better than the Amun community. Looking forward to chatting with you and see you guys next time.